Okay, so we are hopping right into the ingredients. Of course, you are going to need cornbread. If you have not seen the recipe for this cornbread, it's linked below in the description box. You want cornbread that's not sweet. You don't want no Jiffy. Don't make your dressing with Jiffy cornbread. It's terrible. All right, you're going to need some celery. And what I always do, here's a little tip for you. If you have celery that's about to go bad, I always take it, I chop it up, and I freeze it. So that when I'm doing something like dressing, it's already ready to go. So, here's my chopped celery. I have chopped bell pepper. This is two bell peppers. And then I have a chopped medium onion. You're going to need a cream of chicken soup and a cream of celery soup. Now, I don't fool with cream of mushroom in my dressing. That's just my personal preference. This is a true Southern secret. Now, Southerners do this, okay? And if you haven't tried it, don't knock it till you try it. This is 2 boiled eggs that I took and crumbled them up. I do not use raw egg in my dressing. I don't need it as a binder, so I don't use it. You're going to need some butter because I like to saute my vegetables. I don't like for my dressing to have that. I don't like the peppers and onions and celery to have a crunch to them. I like them to be firm but not crunchy. This is diced chicken. I took some chicken tenderloins and I actually made my own chicken broth. I had forgot to pick up some low sodium chicken broth, so I made my own with some chicken tenderloins and onions and bell pepper and just a little garlic powder, onion powder, that whole shebang. So it's, and with dressing, you do want to use a low sodium broth. You don't want your dressing to be salty. For seasonings, you got to have sage. Now, you don't want to use too much. You have to go use a light hand with this sage. And then poultry seasoning. You need a little poultry seasoning. Now for mine, I'm going to use Slap Your Mama. And the reason why is because if you look at the ingredients in Slap Your Mama, it's salt, red pepper, black pepper, and garlic. It has everything in it. I might would hit it with a little onion powder, but I'm using fresh onion, so we should be good to go there. So now we're going to hop right on into this thing. And before I start crumbling up my cornbread, we're gonna go on to the stove over here and get our vegetables on so we can start sauteing them while we're crumbling up our cornbread, and we can get that step of the process done. All right, so my butter is warming up. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my peppers in here. My onion. And because that celery was frozen, it's going to have a little bit of water in it. I'm going to try to drain any water, but because I froze it, it's going to have a little bit. And it's okay because I'm putting it in a cooked dish. You don't use your frozen celery if you're making something like chicken salad or something like that. But anything that's frozen, I mean anything that's cooked, jambalaya, gumbo, any of that, you can definitely do the frozen celery trick. Alright. So we are going to let these start to soften up while we get ready to crumble up our cornbread. And I have these on a low heat, on a medium heat, so they'll be fine. In some pieces so that I can start to pull it up out of here. And if you cook your cornbread right, hey, you see that? That's what you want. If you cook your cornbread right, you don't even have to worry about it sticking to the bottom. We're gonna put that over in there just like that. We can move this skillet out the way. We're gonna cook our dressing in that skillet though. Alright, now for those of you who are at home, you don't necessarily have to do this step, but I'm gonna wear gloves to crunch my cornbread up just because I wear these little jewels and stuff on my nails, and I don't want to be eating my dressing and crunch down on a jewel. That is not on the menu today. So alright, got my gloves on, let's go to work. So you take it and you just start to smush it up. And there is nothing, I'm telling you, the base of good dressing is good cornbread. Do not skimp or try to take a shortcut with your cornbread, because your dressing will suffer. If you try to shortcut your cornbread, your dressing will suffer. I'm just telling you. And buttermilk gives cornbread a different taste than using what, you know, we call here in the South sweet milk. That's like regular whole milk. Buttermilk is going to give your cornbread a different taste. I was just checking the quality of the cornbread. It's good. And again, if you want my recipe for cornbread, it's below in the description bar. So go check that out. And you want to get it kind of good and mixed up here, especially like the bottom parts that got nice and crisp. You want to get it all mixed up. And again, I'm just using that butter to cook them down, soften them up a little bit, because I don't like to have a huge crunch to my vegetables. And when you saute them like this now, it's going to mellow your veggies out. So keep that in mind. It is going to mellow them out a little bit. Our veggies are finishing up, so we're about to start assembling this. I'm going to go in with my can of cream of celery. Okay. I'm going to follow that up with a can of cream of chicken. Now these have a large amount, they can be salty. So that's why you want to go ahead and add these in before you do anything else. And then that's also why I did low sodium chicken broth. That's why there's no salt in my chicken broth. Alright, we're gonna take these vegetables and get them mixed in. I'm probably gonna end up using all of them, but I'm gonna use that for right now. Alright, and now I'm gonna start to mix. And this is just a preliminary mix, just to kind of see what I'm working with. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and put all of those other vegetables in. This is the main attraction for Thanksgiving. So you cannot mess this up. And I always tell people, whether you're using my recipe, your recipe, somebody else's, do you a test run before Thanksgiving, so you know what parts you need to tweak, what you need to add, you know, so that it can be perfect for Thanksgiving. So right now I have 4 cups of chicken broth. And I have a little bit on reserve, but I'm gonna go ahead and put in 2 cups of the broth. Now, the consistency you want it wet, but not too wet. That's the best way I can describe it. You want it wet, but not too wet. Kind of cornbread mixture wet. And we're just gonna keep watching it. I need to pull out my black pepper too. I wasn't thinking. So we're gonna start adding some stuff. Add some black pepper. And again, I season to taste, but if I had to give you a measurement, I say start, if you're using my base cornbread recipe, I say start with maybe a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I would add my sage in 1/4 of a teaspoon increments until you get to where you want to go. I would add in about 1/4 of a teaspoon increments. Now that right there was probably about a 1/2 teaspoon of sage, because I already know kind of where I'm going with it. But for you, add about a 1/4 of a teaspoon and keep tasting. Now, there is nothing that's raw in my dressing, so I can taste as I go. I don't use raw eggs, so as I mix, I'm gonna start tasting. This is the poultry seasoning. I'm gonna go in with just a little bit of that. I prefer to use sage, more sage over poultry seasoning, and that's because this poultry seasoning has nutmeg in it, marjoram, and some other stuff that will mess with the taste of your dressing if you use too much of it. So I prefer to use sage alone, even though there's sage in the poultry seasoning, to get that taste that I'm looking for. Y'all, I'm multitasking. That's my dryer going off. So now I'm gonna go ahead and give me a little taste. So we can see where we're headed. I'm going in with some more sage. So I'm adding about another 1/2 teaspoon. No, that's about a 1/4. So I'm at probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon of sage. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of slap your mama, just to amp the flavor up a little bit. Okay, we're gonna give it a mix. And this is too dry. We don't want our dressing this dry, because there's still 2 things we have to add. We still gotta add our chicken, and we gotta add our eggs. So let's see. All right, it's starting to come this way. That slap your mama put a little hint of spice in there. I'm gonna go ahead and dump my 2 eggs in. All right, and then I'm gonna start putting my chicken in. And this is just chicken tenderloins that I made. This is how I made my broth. I'm gonna tell you now, to make good chicken stock for dressing, you really want to use some bone-in chicken. But I had already taken this out. So if you really want me to show you how to make a really great stock, let me know. Drop down in the comment section. Tell me if you want me to teach you how to make a great stock for your dressing, and I will definitely do that for you. I got my oven barbecue chicken over there in the oven, so I was checking that. And I like chicken and dressings. So I like for my dressing to have a good bit of chicken in it. But you can use this recipe without the chicken, but why would you do that? I'm telling you, follow it like this, and you will not be disappointed. People gonna be like, You're gonna be responsible for the dressing every Thanksgiving. All right, so now that we added that egg and chicken, it made it tighten up a little bit. So I'm gonna go back in with a cup of broth. So now I've added 3 cups of broth. Right? We're getting now. I'm gonna give it another taste. Go in with a little bit more black pepper. All right. Go in with a little bit more poultry seasoning. Because you don't want dry dressing, okay? You don't want it too wet, but you don't want it dry either. We're going to go in with another half a cup. Because as it cooks, you're going to cook it uncovered. So it's going to start to dry out. And when it's done, you want nice fluffy dressing. Alright, honestly, I think we'll be okay to go ahead and add the rest of this. So we're just going to call it at 4 cups. 4 cups of broth. And that should give you a great consistency. I told you, keep in mind, you kind of wanted the consistency of the cornbread we made. But it'll have all your other stuff in it. All right, that was just a little bit more sage. Like I said, I'm doing it to my own liking. I like my dressing with a good bit of sage in there. Now, anybody who has ever had my dressing, they say that it's on point. So I've never had anybody complain about the amount of amount of sage in my dressing. I'm just getting the rest of this these soups out of here, the cream of chicken and cream of celery, not mushroom. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right, I was just getting that little bit out of there. And the thing about dressing, I am going to put my dressing in the same pan that I did my cornbread in. But if you look at it, it's gonna be a lot more dressing now, because when you start adding that stuff to it, it bulks it up. So all of this dressing isn't going to be able to fit in that pan. So what I do is, when I make extra dressing like that, you can freeze it. Freeze it before you bake it, and then all you have to do is take it out, unthaw it, and you're good to go. So if you make too much dressing, always keep in mind that you can freeze it before you bake it, and it'll be fine. So we're gonna go in one last taste. That's it. That's it. So now I'm gonna run over here, check on my barbecue chicken real quick, and then we're gonna get this in the pan. So I'm actually gonna take this pan over to the stove and melt this butter, and we're gonna rub the pan real good. That's gonna give us some nice brown dressing. So let's go over to the stove for just a second. Our butter has melted. And like I said, that's gonna help give us a nice crispy bottom to our dressing. Alright, so we're gonna do a final stir and we're gonna just start dumping it over in there. Ooh, I didn't mean to splash myself like that. And like I told you, even though this is the same pan that we did the cornbread in, you're gonna have way more dressing than you had cornbread. That's just how it works out. So you can freeze your dressing in a Ziploc bag. I would honestly say you can freeze it for probably about a month or so. It never makes it that long around here with me. I typically use it the very next Sunday. So, or whenever I want dressing. So I'm the type of person, I eat dressing all throughout the year. So it is not a holiday treat for me. Alright, so, and I'm gonna show you how much dressing I have left. So you pretty much got a whole nother skillet left. So now we're going to cook this uncovered in the oven on 400. I'm gonna start checking it around the 35-minute mark, and you're looking for brownness and you want it to kind of spring back in the middle. You cook it like cornbread. So I'm gonna start with about 35 minutes and then we'll check it and I'll kind of tell you at the end what the final time was for me. So ladies and gentlemen, here you go. Here's that final product of the dressing. It is extremely hot, so I'm trying to be careful here. You see the nice dark edges? That's what you want. The middle is sometimes it's a little soft to the touch, but it's not. It's firm, but it's not hard. And that's what you want, because as it sits and cools off, it's going to firm up. But you cannot beat this dressing right here. So if you want to make sure that your Thanksgiving is bomb, make this recipe. If you decide to make this recipe, please let me know how it turns out. Let me know what you think about the recipe down off in the comment section. Do you make yours like this, or is there something that you do that may be a little bit different? I love to hear recipes, and also I like to try other recipes. So that's all I have for you today. And until next time, bye neighbors.